It's a concert that blends the old with the new and inspires both conversation and reflection. The latest offering from the University of Manitoba Symphony Orchestra is literally called Reflections. And it offers up very personal pieces that students can relate to on a very intimate level. The centerpiece of this concert is called My Name is Amanda Todd by the late Manitoba composer Jocelyn Morlock, and it was inspired by the story of the British Columbia teenager who took her own life back in 2012 after a campaign of online bullying and extortion against her. U of M Symphony Orchestra conductor Monica Chen joins us once again in the Classic 107 studios to preview this program for us. Nice to see you again, Monica.
Thanks for having me in here.
So, how often in your career with the U of M Symphony do you have programs like this that are not only so modern, and we'll talk about the other piece that's written by a living composer on this program in just a bit, but also this personal, I guess would be the way I would describe this program, especially dealing with things like Amanda Todd and online bullying?
I would say that it is definitely a struggle in terms of in the university programming to program things that are relevant to the now or more modern, as you would call it, but also needing to touch base on all the cornerstones of the repertoire that they need to have touched on before they graduate into the workforce.
Right. Yeah, there's some things on an educational component that you have to be able to do as a student before you join the workforce, and then having to balance then pieces that are interesting and engage with very modern conversations. Like, it's not like when we play Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony, which again, we'll talk about that as well in just a little bit, but it's not like Tchaikovsky was dealing with online bullying or harassment in his time. So that's a very real factor in all of this. What can you tell us about My Name is Amanda Todd?
Yeah, and tying in also with Tchaikovsky, because I think there's a certain element of coming into your own identity with all three pieces for each individual composer. For Morlock's My Name is Amanda Todd, the first time I heard the piece, it definitely stuck with me. And I was thinking about it a lot, and it was something that I knew that I wanted to program something around, even though it's not quite a long piece to be the center stone of a program since it's only 11 minutes long. However, it won a Juno for a reason, right? Yeah. Morlock definitely wrote a lot. She thought very carefully in terms of how to incorporate the idea of social media, online bullying, the little tidbits of sounds and the little comments all throughout the piece. And it really starts from a place of, I would say, loneliness. It sounds quite lonely from the beginning, and then it blossoms into all these peckering in the woodwinds, in the percussion, and it just keeps on going in waves and waves, like kind of like the online attacks almost, in the little short bursts of social media, until it's taking the same energy, the same ideas. She really blossoms it into a positive outlook.
I mean, there's so much work that's been done since Amanda Todd's death, and there was some years later a conviction in that case because of all of the attention that the case got, spurred by the viral video that Amanda Todd shared of her experience. What was it that moment like for you when you first heard this piece that do you think stuck with you so deeply that you think maybe will stick with audiences as well when they hear this on Friday night?
There are elements of, I like how you played Philip Glass earlier, and there's elements of some minimalist layering that goes through it, and there's a certain rhythmic pattern that gives a little bit of a, I don't know, jive, if you will.
Okay.
But it's it's like the way it develops through 11 minutes of going from a place of loneliness to a place of confusion to a place of sadness and grief before blossoming into a real sense of hope. Like the emotional journey is really well thought out, and it just seamlessly carries you all the way to the end. And I think the message as well, just knowing that through everything that happens, there's always positive light that can come at the end of it all.
Yeah. Lots of the students in the orchestra would be just a few years younger than Amanda Todd would be today. What kinds of conversations does rehearsing a piece like this that is so much tied to the experiences of students in 2025, what kind of conversations does that inspire as you're preparing for a concert like this?
Before I started rehearsing the piece, I gave a little bit of a disclaimer as to what this piece was about, sort of a content warning, if you will.
Sure.
But also, I prepared this as for the students to understand and to give them space as kind of a mental health awareness month, to let them know that, because I'm always telling them, do your stretches, take care of your body, don't get sick and things like that. But I just wanted to really give them a space to understand, yes, their mental health is a real thing, that, if you're not alone in this, there's a lot going on in this world. And in lives, your very complicated lives going through university as well.
Yeah.
And just giving them that space to connect with that. And I've had students come up to me as well during the course, over the course of the rehearsal process, being more transparent about things and just letting me know that they appreciated the space and the awareness for the difficulties in mental health.
There's a different sort of a learning outcome that comes from doing something like this, I would imagine, versus the ones that are written out in a curriculum or that are expected for students to develop as they go through their university careers. Maybe let's talk about the other pieces that will be in conversation, if you will, with My Name is Amanda Todd. One of them by another modern composer, Jessica Sparvier-Wells out of Alberta, a piece called Musqua's Mountain Home.
Yes, so that piece, I think also in line with coming into their own identity. I think she is in the process of changing her name from McMahon to, it's still written as McMahon on her website, so that's what I listed it as.
Yes.
But as you said, that she is in the process of changing her name and coming into her own, reclaiming her name, if you will. And this piece it's about Musqua being the bear, returning to the mountain home, and it's kind of it's a peaceful and calm opener to the concert. And something very interesting about it is that it incorporates twigs and branches that I've assigned the students to find their own branches.
Oh, like literal twigs and branches that like students will actually play in the That's so cool.
They're supposed to snap the branches. And to my interpretation of what that means in the score, to me it sounds like the bear is stepping across like branches and things in the woods and on his way to searching for his home. But also it starts with the cellos kind of setting out a drone, which I think is symbolic and colorful in terms of how a lot of indigenous music pays tribute to the four directions of north, east, south, west. And rather than starting with the four beats of the drum, it starts with four different strings on the cello and laying out that plane and kind of transporting you into like the story of the bear.
Yeah, well, and it has these ties into the four parts of the medicine wheel. And as you're talking, it occurs to me that maybe including a piece like this one also helps to create a space, a safe space, a place of healing for people who might be dealing with some of the things, mental health, online abuse, things of that nature that are so forefront in the work about Amanda Todd, that we can find that balance. This conversation also exists beyond the 21st century to extend back to the 19th century and the music of Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. How does the Fifth Symphony of Tchaikovsky fit into this dialogue?
Yeah, so originally I actually programmed slightly different, still around the Musqua's Mountain Home and My Name is Amanda Todd, but I kind of formatted it into a symphony structure with those two as different movements. But after I saw the progress of the students, I thought, I think that they can handle a bigger work, and if there's a year or a time to do it, it would be now at the last final concert.
Sure.
Especially since Tchaikovsky is so long and it is quite an endeavor to do, but I could hear that they were up for the challenge. And with Tchaikovsky having struggled with his homosexuality during his time,
right,
all the way back then, he also struggled with coming into his own and finding a way around his own identity. And his symphony starts with so much struggle. It's just the first movement is just all fighting until to what I think is the core of the symphony, the second movement, a love letter, which he's also fighting against.
Right.
And then through the beautiful waltz of the third movement, which also has something deeply unsettling about it, with the inner sections, kind of the frenzied 16th notes in across the whole orchestra, kind of penetrating into the waltz and culminating into the fourth movement, where it sounds quite triumphant, right? But the question is, who won in the battle that started?
Wow, the bit more ambiguity than who wins in the other two pieces, to put it maybe a bit simplistically. We talked a bit about the learning outcomes for the students in the symphony orchestra a little bit earlier, and I'm wondering, what do you think students will take away from having performed this concert that maybe goes beyond those stated goals and outcomes in their syllabi that they read at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, well, for me personally, what I hope that they're taking away from this as a culmination to the end of the year is how important it is to take care of themselves as well. And knowing the context of their journey is not in specific end goals, but as the journey itself. And I'm hoping that they can take into, as they keep on going, post-graduation, that the journey of everything that they do in their everyday life and taking care of themselves, both physically and mentally, is of the utmost importance.
What about for you? What do you take away from putting together a program like this? When you're putting together something like this, do you have ideas for what you are hoping to then learn yourself and develop yourself as a conductor, as an artist?
That's a great question, because I never think about myself when I'm programming. So that's a very intriguing question. I never thought about that.
That's probably a good mark as a conductor. You're thinking about the audience, thinking about all the other musicians.
Yeah, and especially in the university setting, I'm just thinking about the students. And I think what is good for the students will be an enjoyable experience for the audience as well.
Certainly.
And I don't really think about what I will end up taking away from it. It's more like afterwards I learn something as an afterthought. And I always learn something whenever I conduct anything.
So we'll have to follow up with you a little bit later on about what you've taken away from this concert. You can see the University of Manitoba Symphony Orchestra in Reflections on March the 28th. That's this coming Friday, 7:30 p.m. at the Des Hotel Concert Hall. We'll have more information on this concert later on this morning at our website, classic107.com, and the Classic 107 app. Monica Chen, the conductor of the University of Manitoba Symphony Orchestra. Always a pleasure to have you in the Classic 107 studios.
Thanks for welcoming back again.